This Peace Boys, Islam. We got our regular, Sunday class, November 11th. We can go in fast right now. Want to start up quickly because today is correcting the misunderstandings of Sara Suten Seti because these guys, right? Now the only reason that we're doing it is because we heard that he was here yesterday. Yeah. I didn't hear nothing about him being in North Toronto doing lectures at JCA and all that. Right? Just like, when Queen of Fu is here, you hear about that. When Booker T is here, you hear about that. You know what I mean? When Francis Cress Welsing's here, you hear about that. But, Seti's here at the same place where all this other stuff was at. And no, especially Moors don't know that he's here. Yeah. And he's the biggest Moor basher. He's the biggest Moor basher. Biggest talk whatever against Moors. Huh? Yeah, we're live. It's all good. Right? So another thing that inspired it was um, Brother Rami Salam El went at some Hebrew Israelites, schooling them on crap that they're talking in videos, trying to get people to think that, being a Moor is some joke or whatever. So we're gonna address some issues that they put out, mainly Seti today, stuff that he puts out to try to get people to think that they shouldn't proclaim their Moorish nationality, right? But before we do that, we want to say Islam to Brother Lanre Obey for the 27th Letters campaign that he's running, the book that he's coming out with. So you can just Google 27th Letters, 27th letters, and those were just letters that he was writing to his daughter on the 27th of every month when he was locked up, and then he's taking all the letters, putting them in a book, and then publishing the book. So, huh? How long was he gone? He did like 8 years or something like that. Wow. So, the reason why we brought that up is because he had how they have this thing going on, these challenge, ice bucket challenge, and no perm challenge, or whatever. So, so this guy came up with the 27th letter challenge. Send a letter, whatever, to some people, just to um, put that energy out there of communicating again, the way that we're accustomed to as ancient indigenous people or whatever, by mail. So we sent some letters out and we got some replies, so we just want to put a couple of those on the record. Some of them are pretty good. First letter that we're going to put on the record is from our sister Janet, Holloway, Africa, and this the Move Nine family, right? Who's doing right now. They've been in jail about 30 something years for crime they never committed, and they got their stuff bombed and blown up and all their property taken and all that. You could just do your research on onamove.com. So that's the official Move 9 website. Onamove.com. We're just gonna take some little excerpts from this because just to show that people who have had knowledge of who we are as a people or whatever, they had a mentality that people weren't talking about when talking about them, right? No different than we were talking about last class. Everybody has questions for Moors, and nobody's asking Moors. Everybody's asking black guys, African guys, Nation of Gods of Earth's guys, Rastafarian guys, and whoever else they could ask. But nobody's gonna come ask a Moor to get answers about Moor. And then they're gonna go somewhere else, get some misunderstandings of what a Moor is, and then use that as their reference point as moving forward, right? Which they're only putting a fraud on themselves. Okay, so John Africa taught you can be wrong and still be legal. But when you say you are right and do wrong, you ain't right no more. Ain't no such thing as legal right, cause right ain't legal. It's natural. Long live John Africa's wisdom. This is why Move fights this legal system so hard, because it is sick and influenced others into accepting their sickness. This system expects Move to take them serious, expects us to play games with our lives, expects us to put our faith in their judgment, trust their opinion, seriously believe in the word of a failure, till they can prove they are following true law. We ain't accepting it. And we don't want our children raised under the influence of these legal enslavers, legal alcoholics, legal cigarette smokers, legal drug makers, legal thieves, legal murderers. We want our children raised by the clean righteousness of natural law, God's law, the teaching of John Africa. So John Africa was on some God's law, nature's law. Same thing what Morris talk about. Universal principles, right? And the perspective that's taught about Move and John Africa isn't that. They're trying to tell you that they're everything else except that, right? The next the next letter is Brother Michael Davis, Africa. He's going. Michael Davis, Africa. On the move, Cujo L. Thank you for your letter and strong words of support. Yes, a lot of the information you may hear about the MOVE organization is very misinforming, aka straight bullshit. So it's great to see folks like yourself take just a moment to go directly to the source rather than rely on people who have historically lied to the public their whole existence. I'm enclosing some info that you probably won't see on the internet. Hopefully it will make its way where it means while. There are a few films out there that I have that aren't as distorted or slandered against Move as it might have been in years past. Feel free to drop in any time. Right? And that was Mike Davis, Africa. Um, brother Phil, Africa. We believe in Move law, the way of Mother Nature, taught by our revered founder, John Africa. This is what we in Move live and teach people about through our example. We believe in God-given rights that apply the same to all of life and not what man considers so rights he invents to be. Of course, I can't tell you the story about Move in a letter. It would be a disservice to even attempt to. We've lived too much and done too much and faced too much over the past 40 plus years and are still living to even try. I will direct you to try to locate a book called 25 Years on the Move. And it is the only completely honest book about the Move organization available. If you really want to know about Move, get it from committed Move members. And that is what 25 Years on a Move did. Got the information contained in it from us directly. You can also get information about Move by checking out the website onamove.com or cafepress.com/onamove. You can be sure to find the right stuff about Move on any of those sites. It's why we have those sites hooked up to answer a lot of questions people might have so that they can use the time on dealing with pressing issues facing us daily. Long live John Africa, the coordinator. The power of truth is final. Move ain't talking about changing governments, replacing this corrupt system of government with another. Move is talking about eliminating all forms of external government and replacing it with the government of self. For, for if external government was right, it would work, but it don't work. Every government, every government that has ever been so-called established by man has been a disaster, a failure. Why must people attempt to believe in a government, monarch, a ruler that is totally unbelievable, ungovernable, and unruly? John Africa, the coordinator of MOVE, teaches it's foolish to think people can trust a government that has constantly proven to be untrustworthy. So long as people attempt to invest their life in the failing deception of external government, they can expect failure. Ain't nothing safe. The whole thing is disastrous. For there is only one government, one system, one establishment, the government of self, system of commitment, established direction of common consistency. Long live John Africa's revolution. Move ain't talking about making jail so-called better. Move is fighting to do away with prisons and the mentality that allows prisons to exist when freedom should be the only force realized. Move don't endorse criminality of no kind. Move, through the strategy of John Africa, is working to eliminate this entire system. John Africa, Move's coordinator, is the master strategist behind Move and got the power and wisdom to stop this system, end its corruption, and this system knows it. Which is why this system wants to stop John Africa, stop Move, but John Africa will not be stopped at no level, at no time. So that was just to put on the record that there are organizations out there who have taken the position of um, standing up for, enforcing, and agreeing to be governed by universal principles, natural law, God's law, and not by the mere will of man. Because when the people begin to realize that it's not necessarily that they've been sold out per se by their leaders. The issue is that they haven't really paid attention to what their leaders are saying. And if they paid attention to what the leaders were saying, they would realize that the leaders were speaking nationality and birthrights in code to them when they talk about constitutional whatever, when they talk about civic this, when they talk about nature's law, God's law. All that's more science in its scattered form. More science in its um, sections, right? Another individual we're going to take a listen to is Dr. Claude Anderson speaking about black Americans, black Americans being buried alive without reparations. So we're just going to listen to that. It's probably about 10 minutes. As this is going on, we're going to put some stuff on the board to um, coincide with this SETI madness that people are back in 7,000 views on YouTube and all that.
reparations. Six months ago. But what's happening now is that what I'm trying to do is to create a Harvest Institute that will try to take all my colleagues here and as much as possible trying to give you new points of information that take you outside the box. Part of the problem we got in trying to deal with reparations, a lot of the other racial issues in the country, is that we keep trying to think and find solutions inside the box. There are no solutions inside the box for black folk. You got to get outside and try to find and get a long-term perspective and a long view on it. And that's what the Harvest Institute is in existence for, and that's what they're going to stay in existence for. Now, the reason you cannot win, as I said, is that you've been locked into this low level of a real-life monopoly game. You do not own and control enough of wealth. See, in 1860, for instance, black folk as a Thank you very much. And to my colleagues, let me say good afternoon to you and plus the members of the audience. According to John's letter, he indicated to me that he wants me to speak to develop a national plan, and John, that's what I'll try to do for you very quickly. But let me preface that by simply saying that if you hear about reparations, get this very firmly fixed in your mind. You're not here for a parlor discussion. It's not something to talk about that's nice. If you don't get reparations, black folk, you're through in this country. Maybe that very specific for you. You see, what's happening to black Americans is that black Americans have been systematically socially engineered into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. You do not own and control a sufficient amount of anything to be competitive in America. And you've been marginalized now for 400 years. You're getting ready to be buried. You can get buried under at least a whole broad groups of ambiguous groupings. That's everything from culture groups, language groups, and gender groups. You're going down. It's no longer an issue. You better get reparations and get it fast. Now, to get reparations, one of the things I've been trying to do now for 30 years, beginning with the state of Florida, when Governor Rubin Askew put me over education, when they had no blacks in politics in Florida, was to write the first affirmative action plan in the United States, and that was written to be reparations for black folk in 1971. And George Bush Jr., I guess, Jeb Bush just killed it off about 6 months ago. But what's happening now is that what I'm trying to do is create a Harvest Institute that will try to take all my colleagues here and as much as possible try to give you new points of information that take you outside the box. Part of the problem we got in trying to deal with reparations, a lot of the other racial issues in the country, is that we keep trying to think and find solutions inside the box. There are no solutions inside the box for black folk. You got to get outside and try to find and get a long-term perspective and a long view on it. And that's what the Harvest Institute is in existence for, and that's what they're going to stay in existence for. Now, the reason you cannot win, as I said, is that you've been locked into this low level of a real-life monopoly game. You do not own and control enough of wealth. See, in 1860, for instance, black folk, as a direct result of slavery, had an ownership. When you were 98% slaves, you had an ownership of 0.5% of this nation's wealth in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. Now, this is the richest country in the world, the most capitalistic country in the world. And here you are 140 years after slavery when you're supposedly 100% free and you still only have 1/2 of 1% of this nation's wealth. You cannot compete. The typical average white person in America has 3,500 times more money than you have. And that's not true only of blacks in America, it's true of the world internationally. What's happening right now is blacks is a marginalized, subordinated class of people all over the earth. You have 1/2 of 1% of the wealth in this nation. The same thing is true all over the world. In the world, there's approximately $392 trillion worth of wealth on the earth. And black folk around in the world have less than 1% ownership of it. That includes all the African countries, that includes Brazil, Caribbean, and America. You don't own enough control of anything. Whites control almost 100% of all the wealth, power, resources, privileges, and controls of all levels of government. You're playing a game you can't win. You got to get reparations. Now, how are you going to get it? Let me run through 3 or 4 things very quickly because I don't want to take up the time here. First thing you must do, I've heard it mentioned already, we got to commit a national campaign all over this country to start publicizing the issue of reparations for black folk. Not as something nice, but as a necessity, period. That means every living soul, every organization, every corps, every institution in this country must begin to start promoting reparations for black folk all over this country. That's level 1, is a massive promotion of reparations for black folk. Second level 2, what we must do at second level 2 now is to start having facts-finding hearings. You must have facts-finding hearings all over this country. And you're going to have facts-finding hearings on at least 2 different levels. One is you're going to go after facts finding about what roles governments have played in the reparations, in the slavery trade against black folk, and enslavement of black folk, the marginalization of black folk. And that should break down into two levels. One is to investigate all levels of domestic governments, that's city, county, federal, and state governments. And the second group would go after the international. So you should have two groups of black folk in this country exploring and fact finding on what roles government have played, one domestically and one internationally. On the left-hand side, you should be doing the same thing for the domestic side. You should be going after the private sector. You should be going after all the private corporations in the United States, what roles they played and how they benefited directly from slavery. And also, on the same side, you must go after all the international corporations and the roles they played and how they benefited. Now, the Harvest Institute right now, my think tank, we've already picked up one. We put out a press release on that. We're going after domestic role that major corporations played in the United States. We've already identified approximately 240 companies that are still in existence that profiteer directly and enrich themselves off of black folk. We're going after that. And what we have to do in our fact finding is be able to factuate, document the direct line between how blacks have been crippled all the way up to economically, politically, socially, and educationally, and tied into these major corporations or tied into levels of government. That's your level 2. Level 3, you must then start having a national convention in this country. And right now, I think Dorothy Tillman in Chicago is already, we talked about this. She's going to try to call one in Chicago this coming year. We must have everybody who's playing a role, like Congressman Conyers and everybody from the Congress, and Cobra, everybody should be at a national convention where we all come in there to not only energize each other, but to share information, see where we are. They're trying to set that up for this coming February, someplace in the United States, possibly Chicago. That's your third level. The fourth level you should start doing is trying to get into, out of this conference should come strategies and plans and a specific role model. You got to have a model that every black can tie into. A model for reparations. Now, my model's a little different from everyone else's, and that's because I'm outside the box. I'm trying to pull everybody else outside if I can get them. Now, most people are going to try to follow the Jewish reparations model or the Japanese model. I'm following the Indian model. The Indians are the most appropriate model if you want to track down, doing anything to get reparations of black folk. Why? Because you see, only American Indians and black folk were spelled out in the Constitution. The Indians own reservations and black folk. There's a direct lineage between those two groups. And if you really want to track and get reparations, the easiest and quickest way is to go find out what happened to American Indians, what benefits they got, and track it. In my new book called Power Numbers, it takes you through every one of those steps. You can follow it. If you pick that up, you can come right to reparations very quickly, because it would be very difficult for the government to deny black folk for the same thing they're giving the Indians. So when you hear people talking about how bad off Indians are, first thing you say, fine, if Indians that bad off, put us as black folk in the same status with the Indians. We'll take that. Because see, right, what Indians got, first of all, nobody declared Indians to be a nation. Indians declared themselves to be a nation. They declared themselves to be a nation all the way up to about 1832 when Supreme Court Justice Marshall said, okay, I'll recognize you as a nation. We never declared ourselves to be a nation. We've always tried to do just the opposite of what the Indians did. Once they became a nation, they drew up a constitution for themselves. We never had a constitution. And what the Indians did with that constitution is then to go to the United States government and say, we do not want to integrate. We did just the opposite. We integrated. And I can track everything right down, or we can follow the Indian model if you want to. And you can see, and all that's already built into the law, and there's a direct lineage between American Indians and black folk that you can follow very easily and get to reparations. But we need to have a model. And in my new book, I get that model to be on the stand in about another month. You get the Powernomics model that take you through all those steps, what they did throughout history, from the Blair Amendments and everything else. You can track them very easily, and it'd be very difficult for the United States government to deny you reparations when you only two people that have a constitutional relationship with this government is black folk and Indians. Just like Indians use what they call natural rights and lay a claim against the land, we should use natural law and lay a claim against our labor, misappropriated labor. The next level what you must do is move to a legal step. You need to form at the fourth level, get you a legal body right now, whether it's going to be pro bono or paid. And out of our convention, we should be able to raise some funds to set up a mass legal body that'll be ready to start serving suits based on those facts that you're going to find at the second level. And we start to find those, then we should have people going after suits. One side suing the different levels of government, other side suing the private sector to get reparation funds for black folk. At the last level, you need to set up, at the sixth level, you need to set up some kind of a pool or a resource or retrieval agency that every time we get some benefits, we're going to a special fund that will be held for pooling and aggregating. Now, then out of that special agency, we break away into two groups, what I would recommend. One, you would have an economic development bank on the East Coast and an economic development bank on the West Coast. And what those banks would do is take most of the money you get and not give it to black folk as individuals. You put it into a massive bank where black folk go draw that money to start low interest, get low interest loans or free money to build businesses and industries throughout the United States. You also, if you track the Indians, you should go for try to get yourself some tax-free or tax-exempt land. Just like Indians can go grab any piece of land and federalize and put up a casino, you tell me you ought to do the same thing as a black person, get tax-exempt statuses. We can go on and on, but there's a lot of things we can track. Go after the Indians. But the thing that's most important, I'm going to quit, is that you got to understand that reparations are an absolute necessity. We're going to get buried alive. We do not have enough to be able to compete in this society. And the further we get away from the civil rights movement, the worse things are going to get. And when people start talking about slavery, don't just talk about slavery. Talk about Jim Crow slavery and benign neglect. You got to understand what slavery was. Slavery is the illegitimate child of racism. Racism still exists. That's slavery. Because what racism keeps and maintains what was created by slavery. Now, racism is a competitive economic struggle between groups of people for power and wealth. And it's slavery, and racism never existed until the 16th century. And when slavery went out of existence, racism took over. Racism has gone from meaning slavery to being something biological. Then it moved on in by the 1800s. It returns to be something as a personal behavior or an attitude, and now a bias and a prejudice. Racism has nothing to do with.
All right. So one of the if you don't know Claude Anderson, make sure you go research him, go listen to some of his stuff. But he's been around, and he's been talking from that perspective that he's talking, right? Um, So-called blacks taking the position of being self-sufficient because of the amount of um, finance that we spend in places that we shouldn't be spending it. Um, big thing that he deals with is tax. Us being taxed more than anybody else based on our so-called 14th Amendment status or whatever. Now, um, if we as Moors, Claude Anderson, as Moors, we have we have an obligation to uplift all humanity, especially when we recognize that humanity is um, taking the initiative to uplift themselves, and they don't need a more to tell them that blacks never declared themselves a nation like the Indians did. But there's a direct lineage between blacks and Indians. But you won't hear all the more hater, whoever's out there trying to divert you from your nationality, tell you this, that blacks and Indians are relative. From a constitutional perspective, there's a relationship between the U.S. and blacks and Indians. If they start talking that, then they're going to have to get rid of the go back to Africa and come again with something else. But that's what they use mainly to swindle our people or divert our people outside of getting back on who they are as a people, right? So when you're doing your research on, um, you're just doing research, and there's people out there talking. This is the perspective that they should have if they don't call themselves Moors. If they don't call themselves Moors, their mentality has to be where Dr. Claude Anderson is, in order for us to bring them over the fence. Because we'll go through these. One, like somebody said in the chat, I can't even listen to this, close my ears because I hear black so much. Right? As somebody who's more. Black folks, black America, black nation, black whatever. Anybody here talking about black and all that stuff, fraud, don't even consider what they're saying, because once they mention this term, right? Once they mention this term black, they're classifying themselves, like he said in the thing, in the lowest form in society. You put yourself in the lowest place in society when you call yourself black. Why? Because, like he said, there's a social engineering program against so-called Negro black colored people. Like it's a program. It's not something that, they came up with and they're gonna implement this tomorrow or whatever. This is something that they've been doing. Getting us to classify ourselves under these so-called labels. Right? And again, the reason why we're gonna push Claude Anderson because he said that there's a direct lineage between blacks and Indians. If there's a relationship between blacks and Indians, that means they're one and the same. Is really what he's getting at. Because remember, he didn't talk about anybody coming from Africa and all that stuff to get reparations. He wasn't taking that approach like, the so-called black scholars take, we need reparations because, we came over here on a slave ship and then we were in slavery and then whatever. He went straight to the subjugation part. He didn't bring up anything about coming over here from anywhere. Because blacks and Indians are relative. Right? Put it on the record. So-called black folk, black America are marginalized, been marginalized for 400 years. Still going on. What they did in Regent Park, tear it down, build up whatever, that's this. Right? What they're doing in all these so-called, at-risk communities, tear it down, build up a condo, and then ship all those people somewhere else, that's this. Right? And then, just like Brother Shakim said, we could put gentrification up here. Segregation, and all the other Asians or whatever that we want to attach to those. That we see them doing today. So-called black folks are buried under all these groups. The feminism group and the black whatever, and the Negro whatever, and the African whatever. But then when you talk to Chinese, they're just Chinese. They don't care about what group, what religion, or whatever that they belong to. They just deal with Chinese, and that's it. Name a nation out there that deals with, identifying themselves as color, continent, shade, whatever, that got some type of reparations or, recognition from somebody that abused them or whatever. Zero. Not going to find it. Right? Harvest Institute. That's an organization that Dr. Claude Anderson is head of. Check that out. Check what they're working on and stuff, and realize that how come all the other black guys aren't doing this stuff that they're doing? How come all the other black guys aren't making this tie between blacks and Indians? Right? But they claim that, they have knowledge of self, they know their self, liberate their people, all that stuff, but they're not trying to get their people to be constitutional. Right? They're not trying to get their people to declare themselves a nation. They're not trying to be serving suits on governments and corporations that's been abusing them. But they say that they're for their people. Right? No solutions inside the box. Right? And what did he say with regard to this? No solutions inside the box. So what he's going to do is trying to bring his people outside the box where he's at. What's so outside the box of what he's talking about? The relationship between blacks and Indians. And that everybody who claims that they want or should get reparations, the model that they're using is the Jewish model, or the Turkish model, or some European version of reparations. And he's saying, don't even go there. Because Indians got stuff. And we should be moving toward that as an avenue for us to get what it is that we want. Because there's a relationship that these U.S. democracy so-called officials know about the constitutional relationship between them and blacks and Indians. Not just them and Indians only. Them and blacks and Indians. That doesn't have anything to do with going back to Africa or coming from Africa on slave ships. Less than 1% ownership and wealth, as far as the world is concerned. And that includes all the African countries and all the South Americans and whatever else. 1%, 1%. So when he's making the statement that, you know, blacks are going down if they don't get something, this is where they're at and why. 1% of the wealth in the planet belongs to our people. But then, you know, if we check spending on hair, you know, our stuff is like, compared to next people. Spending on church, our stuff is compared to other people. Spending on, you know, basketball court, our stuff is compared to other people. But when it comes to actual tangible things that we could pass down to posterity so that they have something, we have zero stuff to pass down. Because even that house that we got it on a dead pledge, fake ass mortgage or whatever like that, and then we pass it down to children, whoever, and then they get it taken from them by the so-called corporate governments and corporations or whoever, whose job it is to make sure that we have nothing in our own land. That's their purpose. Make sure that everything that we have, they get a piece of because of us not being exempt and us having this idea that if we call ourselves black and whatever, we should get something. And the world's not thinking like that. The world is thinking that we have serious problems if we're calling ourselves stuff that we're not. And want people to respect that. When they know that we're not that. Right? 240 companies benefiting still off slavery today. So when that's hidden in when Europeans say like, oh, slavery that happened way back there or whatever like that. Oh, don't worry about slavery, that happened so long ago, you know, we have nothing to do with that. I didn't slave here, whatever. But, you know, everything that they got comes from that history of subjugation, right? Um, and again, the Indian model, using the Indian model to get reparations for black people. Using that model to get reparations. Why? Because blacks and Indians are the same people. But the real deal of it is that blacks and Indians are Moors. And when he starts talking like that, let's see how fast these people want to come meet and bring him to their little Senate hearing and all this type of stuff to sit down with fezzes on talking about giving reparations to Moors. It ain't happening. They can say black stuff all day, every day. But as soon as you start talking about Moors and give Moors back something, watch how fast all these Europeans throw him under the bus when he starts talking like that. Why? Because there's not any reparations to get. Because this is our land. All we have to do is make a claim. But you can't make a claim as a black guy. That's why just today, send him the email. We'll see if he'll reply or have somebody reply or something. Because you can't be talking about you want to get reparations and talk about you're a black guy. Because there ain't no reparations coming for anybody who identifies themselves as such. It's not happening. Right? So we just wanted to put that out there so that people can see that it's not just Moors that talk like this, how we talk. There's people out there who are so-called black, Negro colored, African or whatever, and they're speaking from the perspective of constitutional, civic, same thing, same way that the Moors talk. But then, you know, you're not going to hear Seti and these people push Claude Anderson. You know, because he's talking about blacks and Indians are one people. He's talking about there's a relation between those people. And what do Moors say? Moors say that We are the Aboriginal indigenous people, which means that we're saying that we're the Indians as more. That's ultimately what we're saying. That we're the Indians, not these guys that people been fronting to people are the Indians. Right? The term Indian, why we don't use it, puts you under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Right? And Moors, if this is a little repetitive, it's because we got new people today, so just give them a little extra. Call yourself black, you class yourself as 14th Amendment citizen, which is also here in so-called the jurisdiction, corporate jurisdiction, Canada. Right, when you say Canadian, you say Canadian citizen. For people who say, well, why are you always talking about United States stuff when we're in Canada? Because the United States and Canada are the same place. And if you say that you're a Canadian citizen, you're pretty much saying that you're a U.S. citizen because Canada is owned by the United States. Right? And CRA and IRS work hand in hand. Not no two separate whatever for two different countries. Right? Now, what we were going to address today was some of these misconceptions that people who don't want their birthright are trying to put on people who are seeking information so that they don't claim their birthright. When this is something that you better claim, because Claude Anderson told people, you don't know, whatever, you're going down. Simple. Ferguson police showed people, oh, you want no nationality? Okay, you up in the street, right? Um, Shootings out here. Shoot up people on streetcars and all that stuff. You think they're just doing that because bored or racist or whatever like that? They're doing that because there's people out here that are stateless, that are taking a position of, I'm a Canadian citizen, so you have to respect my whatever. There's nothing to respect as far as Canadian citizens concerned, because that jurisdiction of so-called Canadian is under the jurisdiction of the U.S., which is a democracy. That's why Canada's constitution says, we're democratic and all that stuff, and then they got Queen as the head of something, when all those are just private European corporations that came over here, called themselves government, and then now everybody thinks that that's what it's about, right? Now these individuals, one of them that we're dealing with today, this individual by the name of Sara Suten Seti, well, I'm sure you guys heard about, the debate with Moors and, Moors are Arabs and blah, 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 whatever else that they talk about, right? This individual's master teacher is a man by the name of Dr. Ben. Everybody knows who Dr. Ben is, and everybody knows that Dr. Ben has a doctorate in Moorish history. Not a doctorate in African history, not a doctorate in Sumerian, Phoenician, not a doctorate in ancient Kemetic, whatever, Moorish history. Wrote multiple books based on him having this doctrine. And one of the things that he said in his books, that these people who say that they're, respect master teachers and all this stuff like that, one thing that they don't bring up is that he identified our people as African Moors. Just go check. All the books that he wrote, Dr. Ben. And he identified people as African Moors. Why? Because African and Moor are synonymous terms that are interchangeable to scholars who have degrees. So if you're a scholar and you have a degree, you know If you wrote a book, you know it's a documented fact that Africans and Moors are the same people. It's a fact. It's not anything that has to be debated, discussed, argued about. That's the fact. No different than we talked about when they say black, right? And they say, well, Moor means black. If Moor means black, then that means black and Moor are synonymous. And you should be able to say that you're any one of them. You should be able to say that you're any one of these. If you say you're black, or if you say that you're Moor. But the issue that comes up is that, they want Moors to acknowledge this as an identity, as a reality. When you cannot be identified as black, as a reality, right? Because you're a human being and black is an adjective, and adjectives don't apply as identities. Doesn't work like that. But these people are going to go parading around, putting up videos, have all these views and all that, that people are going to go with the fact that Moor means black, so they'll call themselves black forever and never call themselves Moor. Or they'll say, like Seti, I'm African. If you're African, then you're Moor, because African and Moor are synonymous. That's what it is. There's no getting around the fact that we're Moors because of, people want to make up stuff. And we're not in the position of, this is not, we're going to put this out, and then, we're waiting for him to do a video to counteract what we're saying. We don't give a shit what he says. We're correcting people's concepts that they're following from these clowns that are selling them out. And they're not only selling them out to, for example, right? The Moors teach that we can't be black because black, the etymology of black is pale, right? The Moors also say that black means death. So we don't call ourselves black, right? Who rides the pale horse? In the story of the four horsemen or whatever like that, when you got the four horses, death rides the pale horse. Death rides the pale horse because it verifies everything that the Moors are saying. Black means death, black means pale. Everybody knows this. Only our people don't know this. Only our people play around like, we have some supreme knowledge of ourselves. And because we have the supreme knowledge of ourselves, nobody can tell us anything. We need to humble ourselves, shut the hell up. Especially when we don't have a nationality. We shouldn't be talking. We shouldn't be doing classes, doing videos and all that stuff if there's no nationality involved. Right? Brother talks about the fez and how the fez belongs to the oppressor. Right? You're going to go do your research on the last African kings. You're going to do your research on the last African kings, and then you're going to see that the last African kings are wearing either fezzes or turbans. Now, how come the fez, which the Moors wear, is connected to the oppressor, and we shouldn't wear fezzes because that belongs to the oppressor, but the turban, which the Moors wore as well, they're not demonizing that. All these African kings wearing turbans, they're not demonizing the turban, but the turban is Moorish. No different than same guy, Seti, right? He has on his face a beard. When you do your research on Moorish beard, you're going to see the same beard on figurines, stone stuff, pictures or whatever that Seti has on his face. But he's going to say he's not a Moor, but he has a Moorish beard. That's what the beard is known as, a Moorish beard. And there's many different variations and different kinds of beards that were related to the Moors. And these people are going to convince people that they have nothing to do with this culture called Moors. They're going to convince people that Moors are teaching people to follow the Arab version of Islam, right? And then they bring up things like, well, if you're Muslim as a Moor, which Moors don't say that we're Muslim, right? If you're a Muslim as a Moor, then what about the black stone of the Kaaba? That Muslims go around and they have to go kiss the black stone of the Kaaba or whatever. Well, if anybody with any intelligence went and did research on the black stone, you'll see that it's a brown stone. Clearly a brown stone. And that it's not called black because of the stone. It's really a brown stone. You can see that it's a brown stone, but it's called a black stone. No different than when you go to school, they're going to say blackboard, but it's green. And nobody's not questioning nothing? Only one person I heard question something, and that was a 7-year-old, and that was one of the Moorish children from here. And he is on fire. And he questioned his teacher. He questioned his teacher about why you guys keep saying blackboard when the board's green. This is a 7-year-old. How come you guys call it blackboard when the board's green? And the teacher was like, I never thought about that. The teacher, who's supposed to be teaching him, is telling him that I never thought about green board, but we call it a blackboard. No different than we say that, the skin tone of the Moors is olive. And people are gonna, follow these idiots that, there's no way our skin is olive because olives are green. When there's dark olives. But they're not going to talk about those ones. They're not going to talk about the olives that look like their skin. But they're going to say Moors are wrong and then show people green olives. And then people back that position and follow that and give that 7,000 views. But have no sense as far as, right, to get themselves out of a ticket. They're paying goddamn tickets. They're paying taxes. But they're trying to tell people about teaching them something about culture or whatever, right? We got a question here up there. All right. 101 questionnaire. They like to use Noble Dwali stuff and quote stuff. All right. Now, why is it that these Moor haters always say that, the Moors are teaching Islam? Pale Arabs gave them that and whatever. Noble Dwali this, Noble Dwali that. When you go to the 101 questionnaire that was put out by Noble Dwali for the Moors, we have 101 questions. And question 17 asks, what is our religion? Our religion is Islamism. Islamism is not Islam. When Moors say Islam, that's an acronym, right? I, self, law, and master, right? When Black Power, whoever guys say Islam, they're talking about Sunni, Shiite, Orthodox versions of whatever. That's what they're talking about. We not. That's not our demonstration. We have no connection to this whatsoever, right? The only Islam we're connected to is the teachings that Allah is in man. Man and Allah are one. Is where we're at. That's where we're at. That man and Allah are one. There's no Sunni, Shiite, or whatever that's going to teach you that. They're going to tell you about middlemen. They're going to tell you about, the guy at the mosque. That's the guy you have to go to, and then he'll, give you direct connection to Allah or whatever. That's not where we go. And again, Noble Ali told the Moors that our religion is Islamism. And then it goes on to say, is that a new or is that an old-time religion? Old-time religion. So Islamism is an old-time religion. And we replace old-time with ancient of the Moors. Documented in Noble Ali's literature that these guys don't quote. And when they do quote it, all they do is misquote it because they want people to think that we don't know what we're talking about. They know what they're talking about, but they don't have nationality. Stop following these clowns, listening to them, watching their stuff, unless you're watching it to critique and beat their stuff up. We're watching their stuff to talk about getting knowledge from some black guy. It's not happening like that. They're going to sell you out eventually. Guaranteed. Right? Talking about, you know, Egypt predates the Moors. Right? There's no way. And again, it comes back to the same thing that, remember, these people have, whether it's personal or otherwise, they have agendas. Right? That's why Noble Ali told the Moors that if you're not lucky, your own brother is going to put you in slavery. Your own. Not the European is going to do something to you. Don't even worry about him. He's not a problem. Our real problem is internal. People who look like us trying to get you to think that what Moors are talking about does not apply to you because it only applies to Turks or Morocco in Africa or whatever they want to make up to try to divert people's attention away from the fact that we do have this constitutional connection to this side of the hemisphere, right? They'll never tell you. They'll never, ever find me one that says it. They always say Egypt and then they say / Kemet, right? When you do your research, you find out that Egypt is Mizraim. Egypt is Hikupata, and it was related to so-called place called Memphis. But this was not the name of the entire land. This was a portion. And then when they use the term Egypt, you know that that's Greek. You know that that's French. So to say that Egypt predates the Moors, when the Moors have 50,000 years of history on this side, forget about the carbon dated Olmec things that say 2.5 billion years. That dark-skinned people been up and down the Americas. This is way before some slave ship. This is way before some slave ship that people got brought over here. And they're gonna go with their black people that came over here from somewhere 400 years ago when there's 50,000 years of history in this land that we've been here. And they're not talking about that. And again, they're not bringing up these names for this same place that they love to talk about and say, oh yeah, the pyramids and the whatever ancient, the ancient black Egyptians. How come they don't talk about Mizraim? How come they don't talk about Hikupata? How come they don't talk about Memphis? It's all to divert your attention away from your birthright, right? That you got pyramid, this is what they say. Pyramid comes from this, M and R together. What's that pronounced as? MR. Okay. What's that say? That says Mister. Okay, what's that say? That says Mister? Right? Does this sound like African? Does this sound like Egyptian? Does this sound like Kemetic, whatever? Or does it sound like more? Does this have more a closer relationship to more than any other name that we call ourselves? Okay, well, this is what they call a pyramid. Now, if we take this pyramid right here, we take off the bricks or whatever like that, and then we take the capstone off, what's the pyramid look like? What if we did this? What's the pyramid look like? And these people are going to say that Fez isn't before Turks, Fez isn't before Ottomans, Fez isn't before Pale Arabs, but a pyramid is called MR. That's a documented fact that the so-called black guys teach. Right? Because they're the chematologists and they study chemet and all this type of stuff. Right? But they won't tell people about that. So as soon as they go there, they're killing their own stuff that they're trying to put out as legitimate to get people to go for that. Um, you're also gonna, with regard to the Fez, you're gonna check out a paper called the Fez Journal, New York Times article. So New York Times, Fez Journal, last refuge of the tall tasseled Ottoman hat. Fez Journal, it's a New York Times article called Fez Journal, last refuge of the tall tasseled Ottoman hat. And just a quick quote from that. In Morocco, the fez was seen as a form of protest against French occupation. For all those people who want to say that, go look at the Congo rubber movie and you see the Moors with the fezes killing their brother and whatever. Or they want to show you all the pictures of the Moors after they got colonized being um, sanctioned to wear the fez to go into war because of trying to demonize the fez. Because they know that the fez made a statement to anybody who saw the individual wearing it that they're a nationalist. This is before the takeover. This is before the occupation. This is before Moors on the continent. That's why we brought up, go do your research on the last kings of Africa. And you'll see all those kings wearing fezzes and turbans from the continent. All different countries. But they're not, you know, they're exercising Moorish culture. Fezzes and turbans only is what they wear. Right? That's all that they wear. Okay? And when you read that article, you'll realize that people have had our birthright because we gave it up. Not because they, did something. We're the ones that took the position of abandoning our stuff. Somebody else claim it, and then when they claim it, then we're mad and say they stole stuff. When they're not stealing anything. How we know that they're not stealing anything? Because everything is hidden in masonry. Or that we taught them to. So when the black guys start talking about, oh yeah, the Moors or Masons, and they show noble jewel like this, and then that means because this is a Masonic hand sign, and and then when Moors do like this, that's a Masonic thing for distress, and the fez means Mason, and this flag upside down is occult, so that means that they follow the occult and all this type of stuff. Crazy people don't know what they're talking about. If you want to know about a Moor, ask a Moor. Don't ask black guys. Don't ask African, whoever they call themselves, guys, about Moors. Because you're going to get a misconcept of what this is. So we taught them masonry. We taught them that in order for them to be on par, they have to be at least 33 degrees. Now remember, there's like 90 plus degrees in masonry. So these guys right here, these were the ones that did the takeover. These are the ones that were your presidents. These are the ones that were prime ministers. These were the ones that were your mayors and whoever else pretending that they have some type of authority. These were the ones that people labeled Illuminati. Okay? Now, if we back up and we go to, let's say, 30 degrees. At 30 to 33 degrees, even more so, 32 to 33 degrees is when water starts to thaw. Water is knowledge. Light is knowledge. Right? The fez is knowledge. So when you hear these individuals tell you about there's no such thing as a fez in Kemet, but then you're gonna see, falcon head guy, and then he has a sun on his head. All throughout Kemet. And you know that this individual doesn't really have the sun on their head. They're letting people know that they have the light. And then the light is the fez. No different than they show you Jesus. And then they got his head up in here. And all the pictures, they have this thing behind him, sun behind him. Yeah, because he has the light. Why? Because he's a descendant of the ancient Moabites. Which Moabite is the ancient name of Moor.
More came out of Moabite, right?
Yeah, Moabite, the ancient name of Moor.
Right.
And if they claim to be studious and study and they got libraries at their house, they got books on their shelf and all that stuff, and they don't know these basics right here, and it's all about for the liberation of their people, and they're trying to get their people to run away from masonry, that's devil worship, and get their people to run away from Christianity because European did something or whatever, and get their people to run away from Islam and run away from all these things that are their culture. You can't say the European did. And most of the time, they don't say the European did it. They say the white man did it. And if you're going to go make some claims about, reparations or whatever, and you're going to identify the culprit as white man, when there's no such thing called that on the planet, there's nobody that's going to fess up to say, yeah, I'm the guy that is identified by this that needs to pay reparations. It's not happening because they know that this is a fraud. And if white man's a fraud, then so's black man. That all these guys talk about is who they are. And they are not taking the position of correcting this. Well, some of them are. Right? They're not taking the position of correcting this. They'll talk like this forever. Just like um, you know, black power guys want Moors to tell them black power. I'm not telling you black power. Get the hell out of here. Why do you want to tell people death power? Yeah, death power. Just so that we could be united. Why should we stoop to the level of uncivilization, calling ourselves some brand, calling ourselves connected to something power, regardless of what it is, orange, black, blue, whatever. Moors know that power is an illusion, and it's really about force. Moors know that power is an illusion. Forget black. Let's not even kick black up. Let's not beat up black. Let's beat up power. We don't deal with power. So you can keep your black power because power is an illusion to Moors. How do we know power is an illusion? Because it's in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America that these same clowns like to compare to the Aquarian Gospel. They did this already. You're gonna have to go there again. So Korean Gospel, Holy Quran, Mora Science Temple. Now, everybody likes to say that Noble Drew Ali plagiarized, stuff and all that, right? Now, and they say that he doesn't give any credit. He gives no credit to where he got his information from. So Quran of the Moorish Science Temple, got it up here on the wall. The genealogy of Jesus with 18 years of the events, life, works, and teachings in India, Europe, and Africa. These events occurred before he was 30 years of age. These secret lessons are for all those who love Jesus and desire to know about his life, works, and teachings. Dear readers, do not falsely use these lessons. They are for good, peace, and happiness for all those that love Jesus. Dear mothers, teach these lessons to your little ones, that they may learn to love instead of hate. Dear fathers, by these lessons you can set your house in order, and your children will learn to love instead of hate. The lessons in this pamphlet are not for sale, but for the sake of humanity, as I am a prophet, and the servant is worthy of his hire. You can receive this pamphlet at expense. The reason these lessons have not been known is because the Muslims of India, Egypt, and Palestine had these secrets and kept them back from the outside world. And when the time appointed by Allah, they loosened the keys and freed the secrets. And for the first time in ages have these secrets been delivered in the hands of the Muslims of America. All authority and rights of publishing this pamphlet of 1927 by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So he admits that India, Egypt, and Palestine is where the information came from. People are going to lie and say that he copyrighted this. Same people saying that he copyrighted something. Now, they're not going to go at the Aquarian Gospel written by Levi Dowling. They're going to make allegations that, Noble Drew Ali plagiarized this European or whatever like that, blah, blah. But how come they're not talking about this European identify himself as a Levite, which is Asiatic? How come they're not recognizing or punking off this European claiming part of their heritage and using it for the salvation of, other Europeans? Because when it comes to universal law, nobody can copyright those. Nobody can claim ownership of universal law. That's why everybody got played with the secret. Because the law of attraction is universal law. That's not something that you guys found some secret pamphlet, dusty pamphlet. Oh wow, we got the. That's not what universal law is, right? Speaking about, also too, they like to diss the fact that Morris said Jesus or that Noble Drew Ali taught about Jesus. So we'll just go to the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary that these jokers don't have, because if they had it, they would get their perspective of Jesus from this, opposed to whatever they want to assume Jesus is, right? Jesus, Greek, from Hebrew Jeshua, Jeshua, or Joshua, whose help Jehovah is, deliverance, safety, salvation, Savior, deliverer, helper, prosperer, deliverance through Jehovah, Jesus of Nazareth, son of Mary, and according to present-day Christian belief, the Savior of mankind. Thou shalt call his name Jesus, for it is he that shall save his people from their sins. It's he that shall save their people from their sins. And then we talked about the etymology of sin is moon. And the reason why he's saving people from their sins is because they don't follow the lunar calendar anymore. So they get judgment from the ancestors. Metaphysics. The I in I am, the self, the directive power, raised to divine understanding and power. The I am identity. Jesus represents God's idea of man in expression. Christ is that idea in the absolute. Or somebody get that law dictionary back there? Let's look up absolute. Top shelf. Brown one. That's good. Let's look up absolute in that. Jesus represents God's idea of man in expression. Christ is that idea in the absolute. Jesus Christ was the type man, which includes all the mental phases through which man passes in demonstrating life's problems. So we find Jesus Christ passing through all the trials, temptations, and mental variations of each of us, yet without sin, that is, not falling under dominion of evil thoughts. The experiences of each individual are in miniature the experiences of all. We may put on the new man, that is, bring forth Jesus Christ in ourselves. First, we must put away the old man of error and limitation through denial of his reality. First, we must put away the old man, black, Negro, colored, or whatever that we call ourselves. We thought that was legitimate. Of error and limitation. Right? So, old man, calling ourselves black, of error, Dred Scott, calling himself Scott, but he's saying that he's a free man, but then the docket says plaintiff in error under Dred Scott's name because he's calling himself something that he's not, and he wants some type of respect from some Europeans. He's saying that he's a free man. I'm in a free state, but your name's Scott. Scott's slave master's name. Obviously, you're not free. Clearly, you're not free. Right? And so first put away the old man of error and limitation through denial of his reality. The second step is to accept the truth of our being in faith. Right? Then, through understanding, to begin diligently to live truth and thought in thought, word, and deed. The Christ is the man that God created, the perfect idea man, and is the real self of all men. Jesus Christ is the Christ self brought forth to perfect expression and manifestation. Jesus, the man of Nazareth, demonstrated that his attainment is possible to man, and as a consequence, he is the type man. We are exhorted to have this mind in you, which was also in Jesus Christ, which implies that all may demonstrate as he did. To make this attainment requires careful training of the thoughts. The mind that was in Christ Jesus was the mind of God. So we know that we must be perfect even as the Father in heaven is perfect. This seems an almost superhuman attainment, and so it is. The human has to be put away and the divine established in its place. The human is transient and fallible. The divine is permanent and infallible. The individual consciousness, the meaning of Jesus being born in Bethlehem of Judah, is that the principles of truth have laid hold of the intelligent substance of spirit, Bethlehem, and through praise, Judea, have brought the Christ into manifestation. It is wise to protect the newborn spiritual consciousness from contact with Herod, the personal ego. Herod seeks the young child to destroy him, but under the guidance of spirit, no harm comes to the child. He is taken down into Egypt, down into the protected places of the subconsciousness, to remain until the personal ego destroys itself. Then the Christ child is free to come forth and express. And it goes on and on and on. There's like one. So this is just on Jesus metaphysically. This is Jesus metaphysically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, right? Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. If you don't have one, get one, because that'll clear up your misconceptions that these people are trying to get. And we know that because of the work that has been done on us, we have glitches. That would clear up your so-called Bible Christianity, whatever glitches that you have, because now we're conscious, so we want to throw away everything that is Christian or is whatever. When how it was taught to us isn't what it is. How it was taught to us was to get us not to look at it from that perspective. Um, you're also gonna do your research on a book called Forbidden Archaeology. Forbidden Archaeology. I think the author's name is Michael Creedmoor or Mitchell Creedmoor or something. Anybody have questions? Everybody's clear? No questions? Everybody's good?
I have a question.
Yes, yes.
Why do you say that means and glasses Oh,
Uh, when we do etymology, let me get on that absolute. So when they said that the Christ is absolute, right? He's going to read absolute from the law dictionary, so that we can put things. We can always put things in a higher perspective, because we've always dealt with things on this mundane, right, basic level. But when we raise things to a higher level, we get a better perspective of what it is. So by saying those things, we're trying to get people to look at things from a better perspective. Not necessarily right perspective or wrong, but a better vantage point, so that we can make a decision more correctly based on what we know from a factual position, opposed to our beliefs that we adopted, right? Coming up.
Absolute, complete, perfect, final, without any condition or encumbrance, as an absolute mind, in distinction from a conditional mind, unconditional, complete and perfect in itself, without relation to or dependence on other things or persons.
All right. So one of the Moors one time went to court, and he got his. They adjourned his case, right? Because he told them on the court floor that his nationality is absolute. And they were like, hold on a second, you can't use that word in here or whatever like that. You know what I mean? Don't use that word. We're not going to. And then they put it ahead for however long they put it ahead. But just that word, absolute, made them recognize that What he was saying was complete. What he was saying was perfect, so they can't challenge it or nothing like that, right? It's final because he's really the judge as the more. The guy up there with the sash and with the black robe, he's not really the judge, right? And there's no conditions. Whereas everything that they do is conditional, incomplete, imperfect, and right. So when we say black means pale, that's because of etymology. Because the origin of black, when they say adjective and then they say, Middle English, blah, 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 and then they'll tell you that it comes from blue or bleach. And bleach is pale, seafood or whatever, right? When we say black according to science means death, death, death itself is a science, right? That's why in ancient Kemetic culture, when somebody died, pharaoh or whatever, they have mummification, take out all the, organs, put them in jars or whatever, because it's a science. Not just put them in the casket, put them in the ground, throw some dirt, okay, and everybody goes about their business. It was a science. Mummify the body so that, the spirit can leave the body. And then they put the body so that, the whole of the pyramid or the burial chamber, there's a hole in the burial chamber. So they have the pyramid or whatever, and then this is all stuff that's out there that these guys ain't gonna talk about because when you start talking about science, it's more Kemetic science and all that, right? So there's a hole in the burial chamber, right? And then they have Buddy, in here in the sarcophagus or whatever, and then his spirit supposed to leave the body out this hole, right? And then up here in the universe, you got the constellation of Orion up here, and then his body's supposed to travel the universe, go back home, right? I was just putting that in just to go on depth, right? Now, black, according to science, means death because there's a term in law, civil liter mortuus, which means dead in the view of the law, right? Civil liter, CIVILITER, civil liter mortuus, dead in the view of the law. When you're dead, in the view of the law, it's because you call yourself black. When you're dead in the view of the law, it's because you're calling yourself white. So, white according to science means death. Right? And that is because those labels or those terms or those brands are not connected to the human family. So if you're not connected to the human family, then you're connected to the object family. Are objects alive or dead? So if you call yourself black and that identifies objects, what does that mean about you saying yourself? Oh, you're saying you're dead, right? Black according to science means death. It's that simple. Just like what you said. It's that simple. And they'll find any way possible to get the people to accept the fact that they are something other than what they claim that they are. And once you accept it, then it's on you. It has nothing to do with the guy that told you that this is what it is. It's automatically on you. Just because What didn't we do? We didn't challenge. We just accepted what was presented. Yeah, bro.
It's saying that when you watch the amendments that they make to certain laws are working to try to take away from our rights. See how they try to take away our rights
Right.
as far as you granted.
Right.
Now, the laws that you're supposed to go by, how does that mean seem like they can always somehow adjust or remove
Right.
to change that?
Mhm.
So what I'm saying is that we still the right they can pull it away
Right.
as well, right?
Right.
How has it stood so long as law? The law that you're telling us we need to stay on.
Yeah.
How has it stood so long? It seems so easy for them to just remove and pull and make amendments to.
Okay, so what happened is that we talked about this too a couple classes ago. Brother Omar always talks about this. There's a foundation, right? And this foundation is unchangeable. You can't alter this. This is what it is, right? What they've done is that they added all these different layers on the foundation, and then have everybody believing that these layers is the foundation. And then as soon as you start making, so if we put this um, parallel with, society, right? So this is the society foundation, right? So what society is built on? Who's running it? Blah blah, right? And then you start going up, and then you start realizing that, you're making some progress in this structure. But the progress that you're making isn't based on foundation. The progress you're making is based on these fictitious layers that we've assumed is legitimate because it says Constitution, or it says,
saying the foundation could be money, and then the second one would be fiat.
right,
The third one would be checks. So then if you're making fiat with checks, that's what I've always said, that basically what they do, everything has to be based in truth. Everything, that's the foundation behind it. Then they co-opt that and change that, see? And that's what's happening. The reason why they've been running this is because they're basing it on truth, but we don't see it as, we don't see the truth. We see the fraud, right?
and then we don't see we're not seeing the truth because one, we're not studying, so we're not having reference points, and then we're going on, for example, if we use credit, for example. Yeah.
Just because I was listening to one of these things, foundation would have been gold and silver.
Right.
The next one would have been the greenback or the thing, right? The dollar bill.
Right. Yeah.
The dollar bill,
Yeah.
right? The second one would have been, the third one would have been the fiat,
Right.
right? And then the fourth one would be the check.
Right.
And then almost the fifth one
Would be whatever else that
what
day.
they've got us now with, which is these bank cards.
Right.
There's not even money anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's right. So they've separated you from the truth
Right.
5 degrees. But
Right.
we're still operating on
But
that.
we're still operating, right? So
And then the deal is behind that, they then get to manipulate all of that.
because they can manipulate, because everything that's not foundation, that's what they have control over.
Because it's mirage.
Because it's an illusion. So once we get back to what the foundation is, gold and silver, then anybody who says fiat, check, Bitcoin, credit card, whatever, we're gonna challenge them on how come you guys aren't talking of gold and silver? If we don't know this, then we're gonna be battling them in fiat, check, Bitcoin, credit, where we lose every time. Because like you're saying, they could just, you guys want to have credit, or sorry, no more credit.
Or in fact,
Okay, well, we took all that credit, we transferred it to Bitcoin. Oh, sorry, no more Bitcoin.
Or what more the point that
Right.
they manipulate what the value of that thing is.
Right. On deeper level, right? So once we realize that there's a foundation that we're Moors, we're not Negro black colored. There are levels of the fraud, and then we're attaching to the level of fraud because some guy, that's animated in a YouTube video, and he knows how to talk to your spirit or whatever, make you this guy must be free and saying what's right, but selling you out. Because guarantee you, if you ask him, let me see your ID just to verify that you are Sara Suten Seti. He doesn't have no ID that says that. Guaranteed he has a license or passport or something like that. And you know what, where we want people to um, where we want people to realize and acknowledge that when Moors say passport, I have a passport, and some black guy says I have a passport, that's two different perspectives. It's not that, you know, um, we did that same process that they did to get theirs. Because we have a different foundation mentally of how to approach this thing of getting a passport. We're not just gonna fill up a sign here and then go get it. There's things that we do. We're not just go get a license just because we want one, right? There's a mentality that we're putting forward as we get these things or engage whoever that we're engaging. So don't get caught up in the illusionary thing. Don't get caught up in, you hear, um, for example, we just read what we read about Jesus. And then some conscious black guy is going to come tell you that Jesus is European, why you saying his name. You must be, you have mental slavery because you're saying that you love Jesus. When, you're talking about a consciousness when you talk about Jesus. You're not talking about no man walking around. Totally different concept. You know what I mean? When they say, and it's something that we're growing towards because that's the objective. You know what I mean? Refinement, right? So yeah, maybe 2 years ago we were bashing Jesus or whatever because of the same concept. But when you realize that Noble Drew Ali said that Jesus means justice, and then metaphysically Jesus is the Son and consciousness and all that stuff, then you're not gonna have the same perspective. And when you get truth, the perspective is to ride with the truth. You're not gonna know the truth and then sabotage the truth to go back to whatever fraud that you thought was legitimate. That's all.
More importantly, what they've done is everything that you should be looking at, they have co-opted and changed it so that when you're looking at it, you can't even see it for what it is. That's why, for example, the church, all of the things that should be our saviors become our traps in the form that they've done it. That's what they've done, Islam as well. All of that has been
Right.
social engineering.
Right. Okay. So when we look at, even if we look at, for example, Nation of Islam, right? They talked about Allah, but they were telling you that Prophet Muhammad's Allah. But then you find out about, you know, then you find out about Clarence 13X, who was part of this and left, founded his own stuff because he realized that ain't no man, Allah, and all that stuff. Allah is in man. Allah and man are one. Man's God.
The basis is that man is God, but then when someone becomes God and then says that you should follow me and give me all these
Then
things,
obviously there's a problem. You know what I mean?
One of us is Allah.
Right? So when, right, and then he took it higher, right, and called himself Father Allah, which is which is a name declaration, which is a proclamation that I'm not Negro, black, colored. Don't call me no Clarence. I don't know Clarence. I'm Asiatic. Don't call me no Clarence.
But I think also.
But then if the perspective isn't known that that's what was done, no different than, we talked with the Rastafarians about this, Charles Edwards. Then, name correction. Emmanuel after. And then after he became Emmanuel, then he started going to UN, writing the Queen and all this type of stuff. He wasn't doing that as Charles Edwards. How come? Because if you don't have nationality, you're just flapping your gums. And people will, they'll invite you to come to the table. Yeah, come sit down, we'll talk, have the round table discussion or whatever. Everybody has the little delicate name on the table and all that, water with the thing. Yeah, we're at the meeting. Yeah, no goddamn meeting. If everybody in there is got nationality and you're the only black guy in there talking about, yeah, my name is Johnson and I represent, the black nation or whatever like that, they're just going through the motions with those people. Just because.
No,
They can't deny them openly.
they're also trying to keep everyone else in place,
Right. Because remember, it's all about they can't. The only move that they can do is graft. Even the so-called black guys grafting themselves onto something that has nothing to do with them. Let me tell you about your ancient Egyptians or whatever when you were born in New York. Let me tell you about 500,000 years ago of history or whatever like that when you come from Jamaica or whatever. And then there's people there who have Aboriginal culture that they identify themselves as native people. I'm not talking about it came from anywhere. All the islands, go to all the islands. All of them have a perspective that they're native. Like we do the Aline Bay test, right? How many people in here, by show of hands, did their research and found out that they have African in their family? How many people did research and found they have some native connection in their family? Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then everybody else, if you're in between, then you have to pick a side. You can't stay in between. Well, I don't know if I'm native or African. Like something has to be checked off. Everybody. And then remember, African is synonymous with more. And native is synonymous with more. And then for the native part, you can just go ask the Olmecs. And they'll tell you that they're native. And then for the Africans, you can just go to Nigeria and ask them why in Nigeria do they have a native court in Nigeria if they don't acknowledge themselves as native people. So everybody has this information that, we're dark-skinned people are the Aboriginal indigenous people. And that we should be self-sufficient. We should be doing it for ourselves, not going to some European, get help from them for something. But then, doing for ourselves entails, us working with each other. But then if we say that we're African, like Seti says, find me Ghanaian, Eritrean, Congolese, or any of the other 50 whatever African nations that call themselves African and not their national name of the landmass that they come from. We can be vague and say we're African because we think our people think that the world doesn't have knowledge of our history. We think we're putting them on. We're the founders of civilization because we were brought here on a ship from Africa, and we're the ancient whatever people. You know what I mean? So everybody needs to recognize that we're the black ancient whatever. People are laughing at us, but they know for a fact that we're not no black ancient anything because black's a modern term. It's not an ancient term, so you can't attach that. You know, Egypt, whatever else that we want to say, those things fell thousands of years ago. You calling yourself a fallen nation and want to get respected by somebody when we're identifying ourselves as the fallen nation and don't want to recognize that we're the ones in error. Not that the European did something, even though he did some stuff, but you know what I mean? Like what he did is survival. Like, you got mad raccoons scratched up your stuff when you had it trapped. You got something more?
Just to say too that native, as well as the nations, comes from natal, which connects with women, which is what I think evolved. And look at the Hebrew speak, most of us are masculine, right? So ultimately, too, you have to get back to the feminine principles, right? Instead of going back to that, that's where masonry comes from. That's where all this is connected to. Law of sun, right?
Right.
We have to go back to those things, right? Because what they've done, what I remember too when I was raised, Granny was there. Mom sort of wasn't there. Granny was there.
Right.
Right now they're taking the mother out. And that's where we've lost the last connection, right? And that's where we look at that as an analogy to the Moabites and to the Moors. It's the Moabite nation that became the Moorish nation, right?
Right.
Now, that's where I think, sorry.
No, very good.
That basically female encompasses both male and female, and what she did is she created us as her partner to do the work. And then somehow the popes and the European angles took that on, and they became the God principle. And they, not the patriarch, and they disconnected that. And that's why things are upside down. Everything's in reverse. Everything's in reverse, and then also, as well as, anything that they're not talking about is what you should be studying.
Yeah.
And anything that they're calling evil, you better be looking at that.
Looking at that too. Right.
No, that's 100% the truth, right? And that's why ultimately too they look at us as evil,
Right.
right? Think about that even.
Yeah.
They look at us as evil, so we don't even want to look at ourselves.
Right. And when we look at on a broad scale, the things that they classify as evil, right? The things they classify as evil, this star upside down. That's one of the main things, right? This fez.
Sorry, most movies they always have that. And anytime they try to do something evil, they always have that
Always.
pentagram always there somewhere, just as that in the back.
Always.
That's called subliminal messaging.
Right? Yeah. Right. And then don't forget when you take the triangles off, the Pentagon is the United States military stuff. That's evil going across the planet or whatever. Right? The Fez, Masonry, Illuminati and all these type of things.
Also, too, the star when it's done at that angle with the hands out, that's the man, right?
Right. Well,
that's medicine, right? That's the head.
Well, it's the
two
feminine.
arms and the arms, right?
Right. But it's feminine because there's no sexual organ.
Sorry, but I mean,
the Star of David.
But they put the man there in that image, right?
Right. Yeah, with
confuse you again, right?
Yeah, right.
And you look at it, it's in the angle, it's like the back.
Right. The goat.
Yeah.
The ears, the chin, and then the horns. Right? Try to make evil stuff when it's all our stuff.
I'm actually listening to some lecture.
Yeah.
You say that if you a lot of objects are organic, if you put a I call it
Right. Right. The geometrics. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Fractal geometry.
Yeah.
It's the makeup of everything. Everything is made up of that geometric
right.
shape, and that's the universe.
Right. Yeah. And then that's the same thing when you go to when you go to Like they talk about the Moors only existed in Spain and all the stuff like that, right? Spain, that's how you know people don't study. Spain came about because of Aragon and Castile, Ferdinand and Isabella coming together to get rid of the Moors. So they called it Spain, which is 1492. So if you do your research before 1492, right? You do your research before 1492, you'll find out what Spain was called back then, right? This one right here. You'll find out what Spain was called back then, right? Another thing to bring up with regard to this Joker before we close out. Um, El Haj Rashid Mohammed Bey. Um, I was taught by old school Muslims. I have uncles that's been to Mecca, quote unquote. Seti's words. Seti's uncle is El Haj Rashid Mohammed Bey. So he has an uncle that's a Bey in his own family. And then he's bashing Moors or whatever. His uncle's obviously not budging. His uncle didn't stop being a Moor because, you know, his nephew talked crap about Moors. Moors came from Turkey and all this type of stuff. So if his uncle, who's an old school Muslim, remember, Noble Ali told the Moors Islamism, which is the old time religion.
Stands for I self-law and I'm master in science and math, right? That's the last part of it. I want you to know that. Science and math. That's
So
the study of astrology, cosmology.
the old time religion that the old school Muslims followed is Islamism, which Seti's uncle is in it, involved in it. And he's trying to make it sound like Moors talking crazy. When he has an uncle that's a Moor. Nationalized, Bay on his name. Went to Mecca and all that. Did the Hajj. But they're bashing Moors. But he's not going to bash his uncle though. He's not going to talk crap about his uncle. And then the other thing was the whole idea of, once again, people don't want to get it, Moorish. The reason why we're Moorish is because we are descendants of Moroccans, born in America. We're not the we're not the Moors of Germany. We're not those ones. We're relatives, but we're not those ones. We're not the Moros of the Philippines. We're not those ones. We're not the Moriscos, right? Who converted to Christianity in 1492 Spanish Inquisition and all that. We're not the Moors of France. We are the descendants of Moroccans born in America. That's why we're Moorish. We're not Moorish because, the ish means a part and half and not 100%. We're the descendants of these people from this side. That's all. And when you look up Moorish, it means pertaining to Moors, which means that there's something that these people, Moorish Americans, do that is relative to what these ancient people who followed Islamism, whatever, did, that we'll call Moroccans. And once we can get ourselves, once we can get ourselves thinking, we shut down these bastards tomorrow, just like we shut down all the European stuff. If people start realizing, hey, Moorish nationality birthrights, right? Just like how, brother recognized Moorish nationality birthrights, and then, posted his receipt, you know what I mean? And he bought some sneakers or whatever like that, that he got his stuff off. And then everybody's on there commenting, well, I wouldn't pay $139 for shoes, and well, I wouldn't. Well, they're white, and well, why is it or whatever, and why about this? How about the fact that he got taxes off? No, but nobody's not talking about that. They're gonna talk about, oh yeah, you support Nike, and then those guys make shoes, with a sweatshop, and he's supporting the sweatshops, whatever. Stupid stuff. Bringing up stupidness. Just because point was proven, and they don't want to shut the hell up and nationalize. They want to play like, well, complain about they're getting taxed to death, but then not do like Claude Anderson said. Find some way to attach yourself to being tax exempt. How about that? Instead of complaining about taxes all the time, instead of complaining about tickets, how about go talk to a Moor who beat tickets? Whether they got a license or whatever is irrelevant. There's Moors that beat tickets out there, but they're not going to go ask Moors because they don't want to convert to Islam. They don't want to have to wear a funny hat. They don't want to do all this stuff. But they're going to go to some European over here who's talking some sovereign crap or whatever like that, saying that they're free man and we could do this, we could do that. They're going to go follow them, get their ass kicked, and then come back and then not go to Moors still, and not bash the person who set them up to fail in the first place. They'll just turn their back on everything. Oh, I don't want nothing to do with anything, and go back to their slave, whatever that they were involved in. Right? So we want Moors to realize that, conscious and unconscious, when we say do not ask do not ask anyone about Moors unless it's a Moor. Do not take anybody's word for anything. All the hidden colors crap you guys come out with and say that, oh yeah, we're teaching you, but then they got the Moors head on there and everybody's, oh yeah, this must be about our history or whatever. Failing people. Because they're not telling them really what's up. Because they're still, in part 3, they're still calling people black people. But in part 1, they said everybody's Moors. So like, why are you guys going to say that you're Moors in part 1, and then in part 3, everybody's black again? Unless they're trying to sell everybody out. Or make fiat off your ignorance. You know what I mean? Bootleg, right? And then when they bootleg, then people want to come and take away people's stuff. Like that's something to bootleg. That ain't nothing. Not teaching nobody nothing. Bootleg that stuff. Bootleg the hell out of it. They not stop everybody. Bootleg it all. Don't even go to the supplier, the website, and go buy it. Go to the guy down there selling it for $5. That's what it's worth. They're not teaching you nothing in that. If people want to, go ahead, do your thing, but you know what I mean? It's time enough for people to just see stuff for themselves. You know what I mean? Think and save yourself, like Drew Ali said. Majority of people don't want to think. They want some leader guy to do something for them. And majority of times, The leader guys who are sincere, modest, whatever, they're not going to go with them. They're going to go with these crazy guys, call themselves leader. Have teachers that are Moorish doctorates from University of Spain or whatever, but they're dissing Moors and dissing birthrights. Right? So that's that. You got
One thing to say,
yeah,
know better, do better, right?
straight up,
Said, right?
straight up. And if you know better and you're not doing better, trust me, it's gonna come back around. Don't worry, it's coming soon. Because right now we're praying age, so everything's speeding up. So judgment's coming faster than it did 5 years ago or whatever like that. You do some messed up stuff right now, see how fast stuff comes back around. Just because.
Another thing too, all this entertainment and all these sports and stuff, as much as I love them, they're all distractions, right?
Yep.
We all know that, right? All of it. Movies, all of that stuff. Not to say that there's not something there. I get caught up in doing it too. You understand that all of that industry and all of the networks, and even if it's not talking about the truth, they're all distractions.
It's a commodity to entertain you to keep running a certain mind state.
Right. 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 Entertain and then ment means mind, mentality. So from the ancestors for denying them, claiming that claiming that we're them when we're not really them, like we're ourselves. You know what I mean?
If we say we're wise, then when you have to act, you have to then act like that, right? Understood. Like you say that why would it be taken as because we're not fulfilling what we should be doing. All of us should be stepping up. This is what this is. This is what
The,
you're taking the steps.
yeah. Well, if you're making progress toward that means, then you're not gonna get the full blunt. You know what I mean? But if like people like all these individuals who don't have nationalities and they're talking the most against what we talk about, being that we speak about nationality, right? Look at um, how was that guy's name? One of those guys, right? Flap about Moors this, Moors that, gets arrested for something, and now they're calling Moors about sign petition. Oh yeah, sign this petition, help this brother because our brother is locked up and whatever like that. But he was dissing Moors. That's Allah going at him. Well, you want me to go against Allah's judgment right now? Well, that's Allah's judgment coming down on that individual.
And not only that too, this has been around since 1913. So what we're also talking about is my parents, or our parents, they knew about this. Even if they didn't keep us in this slave state, they're also part of this whole thing, right? Because the people back then doing that, and then going back to what you talked about, it's called karma. You go to the evil to someone else, it may not come back directly to you in that same way, but eventually it will come back. So it's all about energy.
Right, and
all energy.
how the European um, gets out of it is because we're the ones in the wrong in the first place, not them. So by us being in the wrong and saying, "Oh, that guy's in the wrong," he knows. But law of retribution or whatever. You just sit there. You guys think I'm gonna get something for this? You think because I lynched some people, I'm gonna get something? When you guys had me in slavery for 400 years or whatever like that, my little 200 years of lynching ain't nothing compared to what we did, selling our own people, making treaties with people we're not supposed to do stuff with or whatever like that, and then complaining after we did all this stuff to get us in this situation that we're in. Even making the European. We're talking about kill crackers and all that stuff. Well, we made them. We created them. So if we created them, and now we're complaining about them doing bad stuff or whatever, you bring a child into the world or whatever, and then he's a criminal. And then you're, oh yeah, that's not my son or whatever. Forget that guy. He's doing evil stuff, and I'm Christian, and God loves me, and whatever. Yeah, right. You know what I mean? That's how we miss it. One of the Moorish elders broke it down like, if guy goes out here, steals Shakim's ride, so nice ride or whatever, hot wire, bam bam, gets pulled over down there. you know, and officers are like, well, yo, no, it's your stuff. Like, yeah, it's mine, just forgot my license home or whatever. Okay, I believe everything that you're saying. Pop the trunk. And pop the trunk and 5 bodies in there or whatever. He's going down for the bodies and stealing the car. Just because. He never did nothing with the bodies. Bodies were in there before he even jacked the car. But hey, if you're gonna take the evil, then you're getting all of it. You're not nitpick or I'll take this a little bit of evil, but I'm gonna leave the other ones alone or whatever. Everything's yours. Once you claim something that's not yours. So once we came black, then we got all the dark ages stuff, all the, you know, black plague stuff, all the things relative to black, dark or whatever. As soon as we claim black, we get all that stuff on us. And then you can't get out of it until you get rid of that stuff that you claim.
And also for calling the European white, because we're giving them the power.
Right. And then we call him white, then, then they have all the power to do whatever it is that they do, switch stuff, switch the laws, change the laws, amend this, amend that,
Or, more importantly, be your master.
Yeah. And take you out at any time.
Why does white give them power? Why parliament white?
You got free white person, but doesn't read free white person in there.
Why is the status? Not on color at all. Status.
Yeah, but
the meaning of it is empowerment.
Yeah. The meaning of it is that you've been you got some more in you. You have some of the sovereign of the planet in you. If you're a quote unquote white person, that's how you get the power. If you say that you're white, and then we take off white and we say what nation they are, either British, Dutch, French, whatever going down the line, right? Pale people. All those pale people know that the Moors had harems where they live right now, and they had European women up in there trading them, mating with them, doing whatever, mixing with them, blah blah blah. So they know that they're part Moor. So from a social perspective, once they say, um, from a social perspective, they'll say, I'm British, French, whatever. We'll say white man to them. They won't say white man if you ask them. If you say what are you to them, they're not gonna say I'm a white man. Like we say I'm a black. They're not gonna say that.
The way we say that white guy.
Right? Or yeah, right? They'll say a nation. They'll say a nationality. They'll say a last name and tie it to some history, culture, whatever.
If war is original man, then wouldn't that make everyone
Exactly. And then if everybody's one, then ain't nobody need to be bombing nobody for anything or whatever. Just get in your lane. If you're not the foundation, then you're a part. And if you're a part, humble yourself. If if we got the machine going on, right? And the machine's more than screw, bolt, clutch, clamp, whatever. Everything is part of it. It's its own entity, but you're part of a bigger thing. So don't get excited because you're a screw or whatever like that. You're just a screw. Nobody.
Watch, if you're black, then you have to do the road.
Right. Right? Free white person? Just so I'm loud enough for the back to hear it.
free white persons referred to in Naturalization Act as amended by Act July 14, 1870, as meaning naturally given to it when first used in first statute 103.
You don't worry about that part.
Meaning all persons belonging to the European races then commonly counted as white and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have emigrated.
People in that little bottom part.
It includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic,
Right.
Scandinavian.
Okay. So people intermix. White. Yeah. So white includes people of mixed with Celtic. Celtic is Moors. Celtic. That's Moors. That's not European, right?
We must insult within our life. We always think of white.
Yeah, that's the idea. But then when you check the record, you found that the Celts are dark skinned people. That's why you notice the leprechaun, he got the big nose or whatever like that. He kind of doesn't really look European, really.
He's got the red
You
hair,
know what I
too,
mean?
right?
He's got the hair, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't have no flowing Jesus hair or nothing like that. He's got the hat, which is a fez with a brim on it, right? You know, telling people, Washington Redskins, they have and they're trying to change the logo or whatever. Chicago Blackhawks change the logo, make it lighter because it's giving up too much. Dark skinned people are the more, right? Or dark people are natives, right? Yeah, right. Come again, bro, with the same part.
Okay, it says yeah, Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. It includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and the Basques and Albanians. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, and mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. It does not
Okay,
mean
this part,
Caucasian
this
race.
part, yeah, read this part loud because the white people. This is the part
It does
in the law
not
dictionary.
mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person.
Right? So a free white person is not a Caucasian or Indo-European,
Or
Dravidian,
Aryan race.
whatever else that is, right? Aryan, right?
And at the
Right.
end of it all, to be a free white person, you have to be mixed with us.
Have to be prerequisite.
But what they were saying is in the beginning, they changed it and you flipped it so if you're naturalized.
If you're naturalized, you can be a free. You can be a white
Europeans
person.
now in America now are saying that they're white, so they're tying themselves back in. So that's
Right.
Of status.
yeah, not
It's like a lot of people, I guess. You have pink, you have blue, you have yellow.
Right. Right. So that's that. Any last comments, questions? Anybody? Um, November 15th, we're going to be up in Steel City, up in Hamilton. We got a lecture out there. Some more's out there um, connected with us to come out there do some stuff. So that's on the 15th. 28th of the month. Um, 28th of the month, I'm supposed to be opening with a hip hop group by the name of One Oak. Supposed to be opening for Ghostface. Everybody knows Ghostface. The Falconer, the Wu-Tang. So that's on 20th of the month. I'll have tickets next week if anybody's interested in tickets to go to that. And what else going on? Friday nights, not sure what time, but an email should be going out. Friday nights, temple's open for building. It's not class or anything like that. It's just people got stuff they need to talk about. We got stuff coming up, writs that you used, other people use, putting stuff together or whatever like that. There's a building session on Fridays, every first and third Saturday, 12:30 to about 4 o'clock. We're streaming classes with Brother Seton Rabe in Philly. Most of the times he has Sister Raz at his class, Taj at his class, Abdullah at his class. Not 15? Yeah.
the same way that you're trying to do it down there, the way the state is.
Yeah. Oh, it's still.
Well, but I don't know how do we have internet down there?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
We'll have to look
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. I think that's about it.
Saturdays.
Yeah. First and third Saturdays, and what else is there? I think that's it. Huh? Oh yeah, yeah. We got the attendance book signed up. If anybody has any as well too, if anybody has any donations that they want to give, feel free. DVDs, 3 for $20. Books, I think
ones are like $5.
$5 for the booklets, and then the other books are 15 to 20. Um, that's about it. So we'll just close out. Islam to all the Moors online. Peace, love, and hotep. We'll just close out with the prayer, and we probably have about 10 minutes, unless somebody wants to chill for a little bit, with a key while everybody builds. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
To his holy prophet.
To his holy prophet.
Noble Jew Ali.
Noble Jew Ali.
Peace and hotep. Love. Islam, Moors. Peace and love.